Sup, y'all, and welcome to Press on Sports. I'm Jack Vita. Today is June 5th, and it is a special bonus episode of the podcast. That's right. It's going to be a very fun one today. Had a good time talking some sports earlier this week on Monday with Bear Coatman, not to be confused with my guest today, Barry Dunn. So if you're interested in that, you can go back and listen. We talked about the finals. We talked about some Major League Baseball. Last week, it was less than a week ago, I had Parker Gatewood on. We previewed the finals. We talked a lot about the Raptors and what they're going to need to have to do in order to take down Golden State. And prior to that one, I had Rachel Gerhardt on. We talked about a lot of reality TV, The Bachelorette, Amazing Race, Survivor, The Challenge, and a little bit of Saturday Night Live. So if any of that piques your interest, go back, listen to that. This is my fourth podcast in about 11 days. So chugging along here, having a good time. Hope everyone's enjoying the summer. So today is going to be a really fun episode. We will not be talking sports today, which is why I mentioned all the other stuff you can go back and listen to if you were looking for some sports talk. So today, I'm going to be talking about a classic movie from my childhood, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, not the series. We're talking about the film today from 2001. And now I'd like to welcome in our guest for today. It is Barry Dunn Jr., one of my longest friends that I've had in my life. I've known him since we were, I think, around 2 years old or so when he moved here. And we went to school K through 12 together. We watched this movie together plenty of times. Barry, was this your favorite movie as a kid?
At one point, yes. I would definitely say that it was my favorite movie.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Geez, it was a long time ago, and when I watched this, I guess there's probably a 10-year gap between probably the last time I saw this and when I watched it again about 2 days ago.
Yeah, I was trying to think back to the last time I watched it. It was like around 2007 or 2008, 2009. I remember it was on, like, yeah, it wouldn't have been 2009 because I no longer watched. Once I got into high school, I stopped watching Nick and Disney and all those shows.
Yeah.
But, yeah, junior high at some point before high school, I remember this movie would just be on sometimes on Nickelodeon, especially around the holidays. They would just put movies on, and I would always get sucked into watching this.
Yeah, exactly. But not even just the movie, but the show too when it came out.
Yeah.
And I guess that ran for a little while. I thought that the movie actually came out like a little bit later than it did, but apparently it came out in like 2001. So that was when I was in, I guess that would be second grade.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because for some reason I thought like the show came first and then the movie, and I don't know. It's kind of funny
really?
how memory works. It just kind of like, kind of jumbled everything up. But yeah, It's interesting.
That is interesting. And it's also interesting, I'm sure we'll get into this a little later on. It's interesting that this show was only on for about 4 years in terms of making new episodes. This show, for as good as this movie was, and we're going to talk about how well it holds up, which will be a fun conversation, this show was only on for a few years. It was on from 2002 to 2006. I could have sworn it was on for a little longer than that. And then you've got some of these other animated shows like SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents who have just been on. Those shows have been on for like 20 years. Arthur, whatever. And to tell you, I know I was never a fan of Fairly Odd Parents, so it's kind of weird that this show didn't make it that long.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have classified it up there with the legends like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents and all that. But I actually thought that, from a show that's derived from a movie, 4 years for a TV show run like that is pretty good, in my opinion.
True.
But
yeah.
I do agree with you in that you thought it ran for longer. And I think, it has to do with perception of time when you're a kid seems, 4 years seems like a long time. I was actually pretty impressed with the run of 4 years, but I definitely wouldn't put it up there with SpongeBob, which is like still going for, I don't know, what has it been, like 20 years or something for that show? It's ridiculous.
Crazy. I was never a big Fairly Odd Parents fan. That was not my cup of tea. Did you like that one?
Fairly Odd Parents, yeah, I mean, it, like occasionally here and there. When it was on, I'd watch it. When it wasn't on, I wouldn't go out of my way to find it. Put it on.
And but, you know what else I should mention about this Jimmy Neutron series, and then I got another thing to add about the production of this movie. I did a little bit of research on. They made some pretty good made-for-TV specials in terms of movies with this show. If you remember that Win, Lose, or Kaboom one with Tim Allen, that was a good one.
Ooh, no, I don't remember that one.
It was like a game show, kind of like a Survivor show, where they had all these different planets, races on some other alien planet. It was kind of in a similar plot to, at least in terms of these planets, like the alien premise that we have in this movie, and they have to compete, and only one team is going to win, and all the other teams, like all the other planets, are going to get destroyed.
Okay. This was a variant from a movie, like a TV show spinoff?
Yeah, this was a Jimmy Neutron made-for-TV movie.
Oh,
I'm surprised you don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. That's interesting. And I was a big fan of the Jimmy Neutron show, so I'm surprised that I don't remember that.
Yeah, but, you definitely had at least one Jimmy Neutron themed birthday party, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I got some T-shirts and stuff like that. One of my favorite T-shirts when I was a kid was a Jimmy Neutron T-shirt. I don't know. I really liked Jimmy Neutron. I liked science. I thought it was cool. I thought I kind of identified with him a little bit as a kid.
Yeah, I think you guys are pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like, oh, this kid's my hero. I was like, Jimmy Neutron's cool. I like Jimmy Neutron. So,
also, I think we definitely had a lot of sleepovers where we watched this movie too.
Honestly, I don't remember, but I wouldn't be surprised, and I would trust your memory on that one over mine for sure. But I'm sure I watched it quite a few times.
I have a weird memory. I just remember stuff like that the normal person should not remember, but
yeah, you do. And it's pretty impressive, actually.
Thank you. All right, so getting into how this film was made, something that was really interesting was that this movie was initially going to be the pilot for the TV series, and they showed it to Paramount, and Paramount was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. You need to make a full feature-length film out of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that I did not know.
Yeah, so that's where this idea of like a TV show, like which came first, the show or the movie, that's where it can get a little confusing for people, and you could kind of see how it was able to stay on the air for 4 years as a former movie. It wasn't just some half-baked plan where like, oh, we had a good movie, now we gotta make a show out of it somehow.
Yeah.
The show was ready to go. It started like maybe 6 months after the movie came out.
That's kind of like exactly what I thought about it. I was like, when I finished the movie, I was like, okay, this was it was a kid's movie, and sure, there are plot holes and all that. That's not what I'm looking for in a movie like this. But overall, like, it wasn't like a half-baked movie. It was very well thought out. It was just the right amount of funny and just appeal to kids and just also adults too, is what I mean by, the funny and the satire and the irony and all that. And just overall, I'm like, they did a really good job on this, just coming up with the whole concept and the theme and just the dog Goddard. I was like, wow, this is well done. It's not didn't seem like just a money grab to me. It seemed like they were just having fun and making, a movie that was interesting and obviously with the focus being on kids.
This film was such a big success. It made $100 million at the box office, was nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film. It lost to Shrek. This is so nostalgic thinking about all this stuff. But it was such a big hit that it made Nickelodeon want to create, okay, well, we got to get more movies. We need to get more movies out. And so they did sort of the opposite of what you were just saying what Jimmy Neutron is with the Hey Arnold movie the next year in 2002. I don't know if you remember that at all.
No, I don't.
Well, it was the reverse where Hey Arnold, they have the series on and then they decide, all right, let's make a movie. And they had written, this is also interesting because there was a Hey Arnold movie that came out about 2 years ago, made for TV, that was really, really good. And it was the plot where Arnold, if you remember, he doesn't know his parents. His parents got lost in the jungle a long time ago as doctors that were trying to help some third world country. People don't have a whole lot of help with their health. So this movie, Arnold goes and he looks for his parents in the jungle. That was supposed to be the plot for the Hey Arnold movie in 2002, but Paramount was like, yo, Nick, we want you to pump out a movie really quick. And so Nick was like, all right, we're going to just take some episode of Hey Arnold and try to stretch it out into a movie. And as a result, it was a big-time box office flop. It didn't get good reviews. It was really lacking in terms of what Hey Arnold... I thought Hey Arnold was a really strong show. It sounds like you don't remember it very well.
I remember, a little bit of the show, but I haven't seen it in so long that when I was a kid, I probably didn't understand a lot of the themes and what was really going on in the show, so I couldn't give like an accurate review. But I agree with you in that, from what I remember, I can't really see, it becoming I can't really see them making a movie and then releasing it in theaters and it being something that's just amazing. I don't know. That just from a TV show to a movie that's in theaters, it's got to be something, really, legendary like SpongeBob, in my opinion. That's why the SpongeBob movie did well, but I don't know. I just don't think Hey Arnold was really big enough for that. And I think that makes sense that they kind of rushed into doing that. And certainly the opposite case from the Jimmy Neutron movie.
Yeah, and Jimmy Neutron, we can debate Hey Arnold any other day of the week. But the Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, the movie, that's what put the pressure on and made that movie come out because this movie was such a big success. And I think that's interesting to note.
Yeah, that is interesting. So was this the first movie that Nick made? Honestly, or Nick movies? Oh, gosh.
I'm going to have to look that up real quick. Let's see.
I don't know. That question just popped into my head.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's the first. I'm trying to see. Okay, so we forgot entirely about Good Burger.
Good Burger. Okay. I don't even know what that is, but
it was with Keenan and Kel, where they run a burger shop, and they had the sketches on all that.
This was like released in theaters and stuff?
Yeah, 1997. It's a weird movie.
Dude, I don't remember. Oh, okay. Rugrats movie. I do remember that.
Yeah, Rugrats movie.
But was this this was in theaters? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Rugrats. I was not a big Rugrats fan, but I'm sure some people like that. There were a couple Rugrats movies, and then you had Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, big hit, and then you had Clock Stoppers, Hey Arnold, the movie, the Wild Thornberrys movie, Rugrats Go Wild, SpongeBob SquarePants movie. So in those early 2000s, they really started to crank them out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You could see SpongeBob, pulled in 140 gross. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. Jimmy Neutron was 103, and then Hey Arnold was 15 million. That's really bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. Oh, jeez.
I love that show. It's a great show. It deserved better than that.
Yeah. Well, at least they made money because their budget was $3 million.
That's a good point.
It's a pretty low budget, though, for a
really is. All right, well, let's set the stage here for Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. We'll have so many things to talk about along the way. How would you summarize briefly this plot, Barry?
Well, you meet this kid, Jimmy Neutron, and from the very get-go, you see that he's a genius. He's made all these inventions that make his life easier, but make his parents' life harder because a lot of the time they don't work. Although some of them do work pretty well, like his hair dressing machine or whatever is. I mean, he has to go through it like 5 times and then finally it gets it right. But so anyhow, so he's a super smart kid. He's got to go to school that morning, and he misses the bus. Finds a solution to get there. Also, that totally blows up in his face too in front of everybody. It's pretty funny. Literally blows up. No pun intended there. Let's see. He gets to school, and you meet the rest of the characters. And let's see what happens after that. So then, let's see.
Well, essentially, you've got this kid who it's really interesting because we see 2 different sides of him early in the movie where you see like, wow, this guy's really smart. Yeah. And there are points where you're like, wow, he's really smooth. Like when you see him trying to butter up his mom and he's flying his jetpack and he's picking up all this stuff and he makes pearls out of clams or oysters. And
yeah, exactly.
So you see the smooth side, but then you also see the not so smooth, clumsy side where his inventions don't always work. His best friend Carl describes him as a hopeless failure.
Yeah. Pretty ironic because he's incredibly smart. So
yeah. So in short, an 8-year-old boy is really smart, but also in over his head as a kid is, and he thinks it's a good idea to contact an alien life form. They come, kidnap the parents, which is interesting because they don't kidnap the kids, they kidnap the parents. That's an interesting little twist on this movie. And then they have to go, and you've got this lawless society for a short bit, and they have to go and rescue the parents and go into outer space. And it's a really fun plot for kids, and I think adults enjoy it too because it, like you said, it is very funny.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly enjoyed it for that reason and for the nostalgia sort of effect as well.
All right, so let's talk about some of these characters. We've got Jimmy's parents, his mom, very smart, and then you've got his dad, Hugh Neutron, which is one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time.
Yeah, he's a goof, and it's pretty entertaining. But yeah, I find it funny how smart his mother is, and how the contrast to how stupid his dad is. I mean, complete idiot in many ways.
So when I was in college, I think it was my sophomore year, my friends and I, we had a lot of downtime, as you do when you're a sophomore in college, and we thought it was just fun to create a list of the top 30 Nick characters between 2000 and 2010. This was kind of a blog / podcast idea that we had, and maybe we'll do it someday. But Hugh Neutron was very high on that list.
Yeah, he is a quite a character, quite incompetent as well. But at least his mom kind of balances him out, or his wife, and kind of balances him out in that way.
Hugh has some funny lines in this movie. Also, though, the parents aren't in this movie very long, which is kind of, I feel like I remember the outer space part being longer.
Yeah, I definitely do too.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember the whole movie being a lot longer. When it was only an hour and 15 minutes.
So
82 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that long, but as a kid, when you watch a movie and you can't sit still, if that feels like a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. The perception of time changes, and that's why everything feels a lot faster now.
Yeah, it's true. So Hugh Neutron loves two things, Barry. You know what those two things are that he's obsessed with?
I'm pretty sure ducks is one of them.
Ducks are one, yes.
And the other, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because they don't really get into this in the movie. I thought they did. It's more on the show. But his two obsessions are ducks and pie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I remember the pie thing. Yeah. And I wonder, like, how they came up with that. Like why? And I guess I'm just thinking they're just having fun. They're like, oh, we need, how do we make this character just funny? Oh, just make him obsessed with ducks. Like, okay.
That works.
Yeah, that's random and enough for me. Cool, let's do it.
Hugh has some really funny lines in this movie. One of my favorites is when Jimmy's sneaking out of the house and Hugh's like, oh, you know what? It happens all the time. I one time was grounded as a kid and I couldn't attend my friend's bachelor party.
Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you? How old was your friend that was getting married? How old were you that you were getting grounded?
Yeah, for real, right?
Was he like a 10-year-old that was best friends with like a 25-year-old?
That's one of those things that when I was a kid just went right over my head. My head, didn't get that.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of stuff he says. I mean, Jimmy, James, Jimbo, son. I can't figure out what to call his son. Oh my goodness.
And there's that part where Jimmy has that really big accident in the house where stuff catches on fire and he's playing with his jetpack and
yeah,
there's a mishap and Hugh has that line, you gotta admit that is pretty cool or that is pretty neat. I remember seeing that in the commercials all the time for the movie.
Oh yeah. Man, that's a good memory. Yeah, and she's like, and his mom's like, no, it's not. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, that's bad. Really bad, son. Oh, look at that. The chimney fell off again.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I love him. He's so great.
Yeah.
Which of these characters did you really enjoy on your rewatch? Or were there, or as a kid? Either way.
Honestly, I mean, probably Carl is the one that stood out the most to me. I just felt so bad for Carl. And he's just going along for the ride, and his demeanor and his personality is just hilarious. Just precious.
Yeah.
Hey, this astronaut food isn't too bad. Oh, that's toothpaste, Carl. Oh, minty.
Do you remember ever having astronaut food candy as a kid?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought about when he said that.
Yeah, I feel like I got it in my stocking a couple times. That stuff was weird.
Yeah, that stuff was weird. Very weird. I'm like, what was he doing with the tube of toothpaste anyway?
I don't know. And then he gets his belly rubbed every night before bed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's such it's such contrast to Nick, who's like super cool, and he's over there listening. And he's like, "What?"
Yeah, Carl Weezer. Got to get that name in there. We'll talk about Nick in a second.
Yeah, for
Carl
sure.
is without a doubt. I mean, I guess he wouldn't be that old now. I mean, he would be about our age, but He is without a doubt when he's 35. He's a 35-year-old man-child. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, 100%.
Unless, who knows? Maybe he hit puberty and now he was a stud in college. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he's a stud now, like Josh Peck.
Yeah. How about Sheen Estevez? What do you think of Sheen?
I thought they could have done maybe a little more character development with Sheen. I felt like, I don't know, he's just like struck me as this totally just goofy out in space kind of dude. And that's just about all I got from it. Obviously, he loves Ultralord. But, it was just, he was just kind of there, I think, for comic relief, whereas Carl, I think, had a little more developed character.
Yeah.
But, it was entertaining and funny, and you get to know Sheen a little bit more through the show, which is cool. But, it's just like a perfect contrast, between them and Jimmy, and the balance is really good with him being so smart, but also fitting in so well with that fan group with his equal clumsiness and goofiness as well.
Yeah, if you identified with Jimmy as a kid, I identified as Sheen in some ways.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit.
Sheen, I feel like he's probably funnier to like. Okay, so I feel like some people probably found him annoying. Like, no doubt, someone had to have found him annoying. I thought I was gonna think, I don't know if he's that funny. Like, maybe he's funnier for kids, but he is pretty funny in this movie.
He is pretty funny. Yeah, for sure. I was like, it's a little annoying, but it's funny.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought, maybe a little more character development, I guess, would have made me sort of understand it more.
Yeah. And we find out we don't know where his mom is because.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what the show's for.
Yeah. It's true.
They only have a limited amount of time in the movie to tell the story. So I think they did a good job with making him not, overly ridiculous, but also enough to be like, memorable. Like, I remember Sheen from that movie. He stood out as just this spectacularly ridiculous character.
Did you know that Sheen had his own spin-off show for a short bit called Planet Sheen?
So I did know that, actually. Oh. And I don't think it lasted very long.
No, I think it was on for maybe a year. And I don't really know how you can make a show based around Sheen.
I think that's what I thought, what I remember thinking when I first saw it. I was like, yeah, this is going to last very long. But
actually,
good on them for trying.
It lasted 2 years. That's 2.5 years. That's not bad.
That's longer than I would have expected.
50 episodes.
Wow, really?
Yeah. It says.
Oh, that I did not know.
It says 26 whole episodes and 50 segments. So, okay, so maybe that means that 2 segments per episode. Maybe that's what it means.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds pretty.
So accurate. Yeah, around 25 episodes. But did you ever see that show?
I think I remember seeing like one episode or something, and being kind of impressed with, that the animation was a little more advanced in terms of the actual show content. I really don't remember any of it. It was maybe just it was. I guess I remember that was kind of outrageous. Just as you expect a show that's all focused around Sheen to be.
Yeah.
But I guess that wasn't for everybody, obviously, and if it was, it would have continued for a lot longer. But
yeah. So Sheen's obsession with Ultralord, and when he meets Ultralord, reminded me of a story that I heard about your brother Jackson recently.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to verify the truth to this story, but one of Jackson's best friends, Jonathan Jaggard, was telling me recently about a time when Jackson was probably about 5 or 6 years old, had a birthday party, someone came dressed up as Spider-Man, and he was
yeah.
losing his mind. Spider-Man! Oh my gosh! Spider-Man!
Yeah. Yeah. I do remember that. That did happen. And I remember the guy. I know the guy that dressed up as Spider-Man was one of our babysitters from the time.
And he believed
he actually
it.
went to CHA. You know Carl Herndon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who it was. And so I guess my mom convinced him to do that and to make a surprise appearance. But Jackson had a lot of character obsessions as a kid. I couldn't really compare him to Sheen because he has, probably went through 20 phases of different characters he was obsessed with. But when he, in each one of those phases, he was full, 100% in, obsessed with whoever that was at the time, like Sheen was. But in Sheen's case, it's perpetually Ultra Lord.
And then another part to that story was that you were dressed up as the Green Goblin or something like that. And he got really mad that he was like, "Hey, that's Barry."
I don't remember that, but honestly, I trust his memory over mine.
We're gonna have to ask your brother about that. Anyway,
maybe I was just trying to get a rise out of him or something. But that's goofy. It's really funny.
Okay, so you brought up Nick, and Nick is, in terms of you think about what surprised you and what did you not remember, I don't remember Nick being this big of a character in the movie.
Honestly, yeah, I wasn't really surprised by the amount of screen time he got. It was pretty much what I remember.
Oh, okay.
But I do remember him seeming a lot cooler than he actually is.
Yeah, this guy
when
sucks.
I was that age, I was like, this guy isn't cool at all.
No.
So, yeah, that's what stood out to me.
He serves a purpose and is a driving force in this movie that encourages a lot of bad behavior from other kids, peer pressure, but really at his core is not that cool.
Yeah. And, he comes off as this big tough guy and all that. And I was like, this guy's like a scrawny kid. I mean, you'd think they would have made him, look bigger or something if they were going to designate him as the guy that was going to go, fight this advanced alien civilization all on his own once they all got there. When I heard that, I was like, okay. But then then he comes up to those guards and he kicks their tails.
Yeah, he does.
And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was surprised by that part because I remember as they were setting this up, and it might be just a little bit predictable watching it as an adult, that you're like, okay, this guy's totally going to wet his pants when his big moment comes.
Yeah.
But, I was surprised of how well he did with the guards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I remembered that from the first time I saw it, that he kind of freaked out at one point. And so when I saw him coming out with the guards for the first time, I was like, oh, here's that part, where he we see Nick's true colors, and he ended up, putting up a decent fight at first, but then for some reason it was the chicken that just was a little too much for him.
Yeah, chicken. So I've got a funny line from Sheen that this involves Nick. They have the fight when they're both in prison, and they start arguing, and Sheen says, "You're just picking on me because you're insecure."
Sheen said that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was kind of a quick line there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to miss.
Which is funny because Sheen is so stupid, but that's such a smart comment.
Yeah, I know.
It's really funny because they have just this inconsistency with, their intelligence throughout the entire movie. And I think it's pretty funny. I got kind of a kick out of that. Just the fact that, Carl was able to turn that, butterfly ride into a rocket, on his own. And it didn't really work at first, but then it does. So I'm just like, okay.
Well, I feel like you bring up an interesting point, because in a lot of these kids shows, it's like you've got these, and Disney shows too, like even these shows that like preteens, teenagers watch, whether it's Hannah Montana or whatever, it's like the kids are always like way smarter than the adults. Like the adults are always like, the adults tend to be a lot of Hugh Neutrons.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I mean, what's a good example? The Fairly Odd Parents. Great example of that.
Yep, it's true. You'll have to check out the SNL sketch that's like how to be a Disney Channel actor. It's pretty funny. It kind of goes through like how to make fun of an adult that's really dumb and
how to be a Disney Channel actor.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, I'm going to look that. That actually sounds really funny.
Okay. You're going to check that out later, right? Not right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, later.
Or mid-podcast reaction.
Yeah.
So then a couple other characters that, in terms of the kids, the other two characters that are going to be along for the ride, you've got Cindy and Libby. And they're also big characters on a TV show.
Yeah. And obviously, you know, Cindy and Jimmy sort of have that tense relationship as they're you know, going through you know, time in their transition period in their life where you go from being kids and just hating each other just because of your, you know, gender.
Yeah.
Repression. Girls and girls hate boys. Apparently, that's seems like Cindy's a little bit ahead though with that. You know, with that process of starting to like guys.
Well, girls mature faster than boys do, so it makes sense.
It does. It makes sense.
And
absolutely,
Libby is kind of a little like Sheen in terms of she's just kind of along for the ride, and we don't really go deep into her and her story, but she's just kind of a fun character who is a sidekick. Yeah,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, kind of a sidekick to Cindy, who is also very smart, sort of a mirror image of Jimmy, but not quite, I guess, as smart as he is, but she's a little more calculated.
And Cindy, she has like better street smarts than Jimmy does.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, she's book smart too, but I really appreciate Sydney more now than I did as a kid. I think she's a good complex character to have.
I agree. She's very complex. And just the whole, you know, obviously her personality and you know, the fact that she's smart, also street smart, but you know, the whole development of the, you know, attraction to Jimmy because of how smart he is, but also that how it manifests as, you know, through lines that she says where she's upset with him for, you know, various reasons, or, you know, just doesn't like him or acts like she doesn't like him. But, you know, as we discover throughout the movie, as it goes on, that's not really the case.
No.
But at the same time, she's into Nick too. So it's, very complex.
Yeah, very complex. And we should touch on our two main antagonists, which are, I'm going to have to look up these names, make sure I get them right. I want to say them correctly. Yeah. Ublar and King Goobot. And they got a couple of pretty good stars in these voice roles.
Yeah, I don't know who they are, though.
Okay, so King Goobot is voiced by Patrick Stewart, who is Professor Charles Xavier in the X-Men series.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then in Martin Short is Ublar for the comic relief.
Wow. I wonder how they nailed those guys down.
Well,
for this movie.
I don't know. I mean, those aren't the biggest of names, and if you want to make an animated movie that's going to compete with what Pixar and Disney are throwing out there, where they're getting some big stars, you know, Tim Allen, Tom Hanks, and Toy Story, toss any names out there. I mean, these aren't the biggest of names, but there's a couple of nice names to have in here.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely adds to the credibility of the movie overall, just having those names and, you know, even those smaller roles.
And the species is known as the Yokians.
I remember that, as a kid being like, Yokians. So because they're shaped like eggs? So they're basically like the yolks in the egg. And the egg is their, little like space sort of levitating suit that lets them move around.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, what's with the egg theme? Like, how do they come up with that? I don't know, but it works, right?
Yeah, I wondered about that as a kid, and then this time I watched it, and it made a little more sense. Well, I'm like, why are they eggs, and then why is there a chicken? And I was like, oh, it's something with did the chicken come first before the egg?
Right. Yeah, so I thought about that, but I'm like, what is that what does that thought experiment or whatever have to do with the rest of the movie? Like,
I don't know.
It's just the chicken and the egg kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's really weird. You've got like these living fetuses, basically, the eggs,
right,
that don't ever hatch into anything more than an egg.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was even thinking about like so Pultra, like the
Yes.
massive chicken, is their god or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, why is it their god? Is it because like it's just a gigantic chicken, or is it because like they came from Pultra and you don't know? You kind of, or did they create Pultra?
I was wondering about that too. The thing I was thinking, I'm like, all right, so there has to be some sort of an evolutionary theme in this that they keep talking about, because they're like, this is an advanced species, and so Pultra actually became a chicken and wasn't just an egg. So for whatever, I don't know how Pultra got there and how they all got there or what, but he's the only, to our knowledge, the only chicken that we see on this planet. So I guess all of the eggs all worship the chicken.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But,
Sort of.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I could see why, the egg, which theoretically, we mostly understand to come from chickens, would consider the chicken to be, their god or their mother or father, whatever, So, without getting into it too much, it works.
It works, I guess. So, all right, let's talk about one of my favorite parts of the movie, which I think is going to be a really fun part to talk about, is this lawless society when all the parents are gone. There's a little bit of commentary here in the sense of it shows like you can't just have kids doing whatever they want to do. Parents, you got to you can't just let your kids dictate how they want to live their lives. You have to set up some structure, some boundaries. What do you think about that? Yeah,
it's a valid message, and it's actually one of the truer parts of the movie. So it's definitely a very valid message, and it doesn't, I think, just apply to kids, but it applies to people like our age too. We if we don't kind of self-police ourselves and create good habits and hold ourselves accountable for things, it's the same thing would happen to us, except it kind of happens in the form of drinking or going out and partying really late at night, and then obviously that has consequences that manifest in the following day with being hungover and just being a mess overall. So
yeah, and that's funny because I was like, oh my gosh, Jimmy's hungover. What is going on? Never understood that part before.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that when I was a kid at all. But when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is going out and partying too hard the night before and then being hungover the next day, and feeling sick to your stomach in this case because of all the food and stuff that
cotton candy. That one
He's
kid's
also like,
stomach.
"Oh, I have a headache."
Yeah, he does say that. And then Nick says, "I remember when I had my first time."
Yeah, okay, that too. Yeah, it's like, okay.
I remember when I had my first beer.
Yeah, exactly. I remember my first beer.
Step Brothers.
Yeah, the other thing that stood out to me about that whole thing was, like, okay, so the aliens came and they took all the parents, right? But there were no adults in the whole, like, world, right?
In Retroville.
Oh, just in that city?
Yeah, that's what I gathered.
Okay.
Because, I was thinking about that idea, is like, there have to be more adults if they took everyone from Earth, but there wasn't any sort of like, oh, here are the kids from Africa or Asia or Europe or whatever.
Right.
Like, you'd have some kids showing up who speak a different language.
Yeah.
And it's more convenient as a plot for it to just be Retroville, because then you have to bring in other characters and all that. Especially when you're introducing us all these characters for the first time.
All right, so if it's just Retroville, then when the aliens come, are they just taking parents, or are they taking all the adults? That's what I was
That's a great question.
Trying to figure out, because then they go like to the candy bar or whatever, and I'm like, well, there should be, like the guy who runs the candy bar, who wasn't in this movie, but him, like, he probably doesn't have kids, so he's probably not a parent, or at least we don't know, we don't see them. But there's no adults in that whole candy bar, like in the whole town. So I don't know. That's just what I was thinking about.
And all the adults that we saw, it looked like matched up with a kid. All the kid, like all the adults that were wearing the mind control devices, it looked like they each had a kid that was corresponding to them, and they were all happy to see their kid again.
Right.
So this must be another point where it's just convenient to make the movie that way.
Right.
Where I guess they didn't want to have like, oh, there's the random guy and he doesn't have a kid to greet him, and so this is convenienced a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. Like, there's plot holes like that, but they can get away with it because it's a kids movie, and two, it's like, the whole thing is just so ridiculous that it's entertaining, and just because of that they don't have to go out of their way to explain little things like that.
Yeah, they weren't expecting a couple of guys to pick it apart 18 years later on a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it works. It does look like there are no adults in Retroville, because the stuff the kids are able to do there's no way, like, there would be cops that don't have kids that would be like, where are your parents? What's going on here? And so in this world, in Retroville, apparently every adult in the town is a parent at this time.
Right.
And it's a little town, so maybe that's not too far-fetched.
Yeah, or they came and took all the adults, and that would include all the parents.
And they weren't able to rescue those other adults.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe they only rescued the parents.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's all that matters, right? The kids need the parents, the other adults, like, all right, well, no one's really depending on you, so it's
Poultry needs to eat. You got to give him something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
Retroville, I like the name of the town. It does look kind of old-timey.
Oh,
like
yeah.
70s or 80s feel.
Yeah, I forgot I thought about that. I didn't piece that together when I was a kid.
No, me neither.
And the town being, like, retro looking. Like, the car that they drive is like, from the 60s or 70s, probably.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. But I'm just like, little things like that, like, how did they come up with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just fun. They're just having a good time.
So what was your favorite part of the sequence where we're seeing they're playing Blitzkrieg Bop, and you're seeing the water skiing in the halls, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's a good question. Man, I mean,
I guess I would say this is my favorite scene in the movie.
I mean,
it's really
it definitely
funny.
was the best scene in the movie. They're just like in the school, I guess, and like water skiing in there. I'm just like, that is so absurdly ridiculous, but that's just funny. I don't know. I thought it was funny how they all gathered like at the school,
Yeah, me too.
And were just, doing whatever they wanted. And it so happens that, the teacher, Miss Fowl or whatever, didn't get abducted. So she was there for the whole thing, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, and Miss Fowl almost dies at the beginning of this movie too.
Like from the caterpillar or whatever.
Yeah, the gigantic worm or caterpillar, and it looks like they develop a friendship over the course of the movie.
Yeah.
There's some good comic relief there.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So, but yeah, she is quite foul. Didn't really realize that when I was a kid.
Yeah, she's bird-like.
Yeah, for sure.
Class!
Yeah, class! Carl! Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, so she must not have gotten abducted just because she was off the radar, because she had shrunk. It's like she disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my favorite part is watching them all line dance in front of the school with, all the food they're consuming. It just looks so fun. It looks like that is definitely what 7 or 8 year olds, if they had a day where they can just do whatever they wanted without any consequences, that's what they'd be doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. Just eating a ridiculous amount of food and just going crazy, making a huge mess, not cleaning it up.
There's another theme here, Barry, and that's the theme of consequences that you touched on earlier. Yeah,
and obviously Jimmy not thinking through what he's doing with sending a probe into space, kind of set everything into motion here. Pretty big consequences having an alien civilization show up to your planet and just wreak havoc.
Yeah. And that's something that went over my head as a kid. I had never thought about the fact, like, wow, Jimmy's the reason this all happened because he wasn't listening to his parents. And I think I understood the idea that, like, we need our parents, and parents are good, and we should want to obey them. But there are a couple of things here that I kind of looked the other way on when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's interesting how Jimmy's kind of a mix of his parents, too.
Yeah.
He's got his mom's smarts, but he has his dad's, impractical stupidness.
Yeah, clumsiness.
Clumsiness, yeah.
And naivete.
Yeah, agreed. Certainly naive. But it does make for a very interesting, complex character, which, again, like, that kind of thing isn't something you expect from a kid's movie like this. So that played into me thinking this was actually a well thought out movie.
Yeah. There were some very clever points watching them construct the very different ways that they create their rockets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is just that whole sequence was like just funny. I don't know. Like Sheen goes to his favorite ride, like Ultra Lord ride or whatever, wherever he gets that car. I'm assuming it's like Ultra Lord's car, and turns it into a rocket. And he's got these nuclear fuel rods and stuff. He's like, "Hey Jimmy, what do I do with this?"
It's just that great
hilarious
line, Sheen. It's not rocket science. Oh wait, it actually is rocket science.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah. The whole Ultra Lord thing is great, though. I mean, I love how he when they go back to go to Retroland, he goes up to Ultra Lord, and it's just like this dude who's probably single and just needs to pay his rent. Is working at Retroland dressed up as Ultra Lord. He's like, "You are now, part of the galactic forces or whatever." And Sheen's like, oh, that's incredible. And then he falls over and faints. And yeah, he's like, is this kid with anybody?
Yeah, he's got that voice. It's a different voice. He's got the Ultra Lord voice. And that guy, I don't know what his name is, but that voice actor I've heard in a lot of different stuff. Like, I was watching the original Aladdin a few months ago, and I heard that voice in there. He's got a great voice. And then all of a sudden, you just hear a regular, like, schlub.
Yeah. Take this badge of honor. Faints. Is this kid with anybody? Yeah, that's great.
And Carl loves the llamas.
Yep. He walks out wearing that I touched the llama button. It's pretty funny.
I touched the butt in Finding Nemo a little bit like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like that.
And we don't hear a whole lot about Carl's love for llamas, but that will be explored in the series.
Yep. Very true. Very true.
I also found it funny that this big time ride that they all like going on is called Bat Out of Heck.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I remembered that as being. I was like, oh, they're gonna ride on Bat out of Hell or something. And I was like, is that really what it was called? And I saw the Bat Out of Heck. I was like, oh, all right, okay, that makes sense.
Also, a reference to the classic Meatloaf album from the '80s, Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, they find Nick on that ride. Right, of all rides.
Yeah, and he's not just taking the normal path; he's going upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, Nick is... I just realized, did we see Nick's dad? Does he not have a father figure in his life?
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking when they're meeting all the parents, and everyone has a mom and a dad except for Nick. He just has a mom. So,
and Sheen just has a dad.
Maybe he just went to the bathroom or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But probably
if he doesn't have a father figure, that might explain the way that he acts.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, okay, figures. He doesn't have a father figure. And I don't think he could really do that, make that kind of point today in 2019, to be honest. But, I mean, it makes sense. I think father figures are important in kids' lives for a lot of reasons, just as important as a mother figure. But
yeah. Very, very important. Now, can someone, just to be clear, so we don't get in any trouble, can someone who's raised by a single mother have a great life, have a great parent, and a mom that's able to do, it's a superhero type mom? Absolutely. No doubt about it. So much respect for single parents. However, it's tough. Very tough.
No, I definitely agree with that for sure.
So, I want to leave that part and get away from that now. But it's funny, Nick is going upside down, and he kind of has an appearance like a little devil on someone's shoulder.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what, the role that he plays in this movie, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, with that part when they're walking home from school, and they're like, how do we go to this thing tonight if our parents won't let us? Oh, we'll sneak out.
That was a good impression.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Sneak out. That wasn't as good. But yeah, and that was a big catalyst for the rest of the movie. So, I mean, Nick's not a small role in this movie, even though he doesn't get a lot of screen time.
I think the 3 most fun scenes in this movie, well, I guess you could have 4. One, maybe not as... I mean, it looks fun, but it's not as exciting as when they go to Retroland. That's a fun scene, but not to the level of some of these other ones. The Lawless Society scene is great. The part where they all create the rockets is really fun, and seeing them go out into space, and the girl power that Cindy is all about, and how they put that little drill on the front of their rocket was very clever.
Yeah. Just the fact, like, the way that some of these rockets launched, too. I was like, okay, these, like, 4th grade kids, like, like turn this Ferris wheel into an interstellar rocket that, like, one side of it drops down, the other side, like, brings it back and then shoots it into the air. It's just like, I'm like, all right.
And Jimmy's like, we only need 2 days. Just give us 2 days. We'll build it all, and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, 2 days exactly. I'm like, just imagine when all the adults get back, the people that are running the theme park see that all their stuff had been turned into rockets. Oh wait, and actually they're all gone because they left them on the planet. Like two. How many light years away? Like 30 light years away or something?
I don't know.
I think that's what he said. Like in the beginning, he's like 30 light years away, which means you'd have to go the speed of light, which is impossible, and then it would still take you 30 years to get there.
Yeah.
But no, it takes them like 20 minutes. Or no, 2 days, I guess, because they sleep on that like asteroid or whatever.
Yeah, they slept on an asteroid. I thought it was going to be a moon or a planet. Not know that you could gravitate on an asteroid and just have a camping trip on it.
Yeah. Yeah, without any spacesuits or anything, but
yeah.
I don't know. That's suspended, realistic belief or whatever. It's like obviously not real, but it's funny and entertaining.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we could point to in this movie about that, but exactly. At this point we're just ignoring it.
Yeah, just like right from the get-go, Jimmy, just right before school takes off into space and then, gets confronted by the military, and that in of itself is pretty bad. And then comes back down and crashes his rocket onto his house roof and is totally fine, not a scratch. Maybe his hair just gets a little messed up, but
Barry, is this movie anti-military? Because he's not getting along with the military at the beginning, and then he raises his underwear in place of the American flag.
Wow, that's deep. I didn't really think about that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. Well, yeah. Honestly, that is a good question. I hope not. I hope not. The military does good things for us.
Yes,
keeps us safe.
Word. The last scene that I think is really, really fun is watching all these kids kick the snot out of all the Yokians, and this is a trope you see in a lot of movies in the fight scene where they each have their quirky ways of how they're fighting them, but I thought this was pretty clever with Carl's pepper spray inhaler and Libby's headphones that she blasts.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, some of those ways that they kill them were like, I was just like, that is just goofy. She just throws her headset on him and turns up the volume, and he just like explodes. I'm like, that's just so absurdly ridiculous that it's great. And then he sprays one of them with Carl sprays it with his inhaler, and he's like, oh, I can't see. And then he like turns around and flies into the wall like 30 miles an hour and dies. It's just funny. But at the end, when I thought it was interesting how Jimmy's kind of character arc comes full circle, and he goes from being called scrawny and feeling inadequate.
A white dwarf.
Yeah, white dwarf. Exactly. To being this physically huge kid as a result of his intellect in creating that, shrink ray or whatever, which shrink/grow ray. So I thought that was well done. But I did think the arc was a little weird because kind of the first half of the movie, I was like, well, it seems like, Jimmy's main issue here is that he doesn't think through things, or he kind of, screws up a lot of his inventions or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, that's the kind of the problem that he has to overcome. And then kind of halfway through, when they're sleeping on the planet, it kind of turns into, like people call me small and incapable. But I guess that kind of goes along with the, being having issues with his inventions. It's kind of those two sort of hurdles that he has to get over.
Yeah, that's an interesting point I hadn't really thought about. Maybe it's that he is a little naive as a result of feeling like people call him small, that he wants to prove everyone wrong, and so he's motivated sometimes just to be like, I'm going to prove these people wrong and show that I am right and I know what I'm doing, and that leads him to some poor decisions.
Right. Well, and then at the end, it all gets resolved when he, fixes his mistake, and everybody's closer because of it, and it ends up being kind of a good thing at the end that it happened. So,
yeah. Do you think Jimmy learned his lesson? Or did he not? Because he's gonna get into some weird adventures on the show.
I was gonna say that. I think he learned something from it. I don't think part of who he is to do things kind of like that. But I think now he'll be a little bit more cautious before he and think through things a little bit more than he did before. So
yeah. Well, Barry, how well did this movie hold up for you on a rewatch?
It actually held up a lot better than I thought it would. I enjoyed it. If I had never seen it before, I still would have probably thought that it was a funny movie. But a lot of it,
clever and cute.
Yeah, clever and yeah, exactly. But a lot of what made it really enjoyable for me was the nostalgia aspect of it, as well as the fact that it was a funny movie, and I could just see how the people that made it were just having fun with it, and that was something that I really enjoyed. So it actually held up really well, and I actually looked at the reviews, and I think it got like a 75%, which is pretty good on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that's good for a kid's movie. That's really good.
That's really good. So. Yeah. So I kind of watched a couple episodes of the show too after that because I was intrigued, and it just brought up a lot of, not just reminders about the show, but just kind of that time in my life when I was in second grade, third grade, fourth grade. That period just brought back a lot of emotions, thoughts, images, and all that. So that was pretty enjoyable.
That's cool. Yeah, last summer I did a podcast episode with CJ Rivas, our buddy from Homeroom, and we talked about backyard baseball, and so had similar reaction going back and playing that game, and it brought back so many memories of playing baseball as a kid in the park, on a team, or just in people's backyards, and
sure,
it's always fun to have those memories attached.
Yeah, and part of it, like I said, I kind of identified with Jimmy, and not that I was like a genius or anything or super smart when I was a kid, but I just felt like, I don't know, I was kind of a different kid in some ways. I don't know. I would get into that. It'd be a longer discussion, but I just felt like kind of, I had, a smaller group of friends when I was a kid. I didn't sort of identify with everybody else and what they wanted to do. It kind of felt like a little bit of an outsider, and that's kind of how Jimmy, is. But that doesn't make him completely worthless or anything. He's obviously, super smart and bright future ahead of him. But that's kind of how I identified with him, like in that way, just being kind of different, I guess. But in a good way, I would say, looking back. But yeah. So it was interesting, going back and watching it and kind of reliving those kind of feelings that I had when I was a kid. So,
well, you were the perfect guest to talk about this with. We still got a couple more things we'll touch on. I'm not letting you go quite yet.
Okay, all right.
But I had a similar reaction. I felt that way when I watched A Bug's Life, which was, if you remember, that was like what Jimmy Neutron was to you as a kid. Bug's Life was to me, and Flick. I identified with him in a lot of ways, and it's fun to have that.
Yeah, I remember that. I do. I remember that was even like before Jimmy Neutron, like for you. I remember you really liking that movie a lot. Yeah, and that is a good movie.
A Bug's Life backpack. Yeah, it is a good one.
Yeah,
that will definitely have to be a podcast at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I do think this movie holds up really well. It's kind of funny, some of these dated reference, and also the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack a lot. Talk about that in a second. But Libby's cell phone is one of those early 2000s phones with
I saw that.
the little antenna. And
her
it looks
CD
like a flip
player.
phone.
It's not even an MP3 player. It's a CD player.
Oh gosh, she's great. I like her.
Yeah, she's a good character. I mean,
And picking out her ringtone.
Yeah. I mean, they're all good characters. I mean, you don't get stuff like that as often these days anymore. So
Yeah, and that's what's funny is like when sometimes we as mid-20s, I'm 24, you're 25, I haven't gotten to 25 yet, but we'll talk about those old shows that we liked, and then we'll compare it to if we have a younger sibling. I know you have a brother who's quite a bit younger than you, so you probably saw some of the shows that he liked when he was still watching Nick, or if you babysat or whatever, and you've seen some of the recent stuff, you're like, wow, this just isn't very good. This is not good.
Yeah.
And what some people are like, well, was it just good because you grew up with it?
Yeah.
And so it's fun to revisit it and see, was it actually good? Because sometimes I watch stuff and I'm like, wow, that was not very good. Max Keeble's Big Move.
Yeah.
That was a movie I thought was really funny as a kid.
I remember the title and a bit of the movie. No. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like I watched that Max watched, even 4 or 5 years ago, not that long ago, and when he was close to the age that I was at that time, and I'm like, I don't know about this, but it's kind of hard to tell because you're kind of comparing apples to oranges when you're doing that, because at my age you have a different perspective on stuff like that. But so try to be careful with that. But some of the shows are just, I don't know. I'm like, I mean, we could get into how they're different, but that would be a whole other podcast probably.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, this stuff seems a lot more just outrageous than like what I remember as a kid. But
yeah. So I'm going to ask you another question, then we have one last topic to talk about. So, Barry, did you have any gripes with this movie?
Did I have any gripes?
I had one.
Nothing stood out to me, and I wasn't really watching it with sort of a critical lens, through critical lens, but let me hear yours first.
Okay. It's a minor gripe. It's not a big deal. I don't really like Jimmy's voice. He's voiced by a woman, and I think his voice just sounds a little too girly.
I was going to bring that up at one point. I was going to say that his voice is like voiced by a woman. I found that out. And I thought that was kind of weird. I agree. I do agree with that. And I've had that thought before. I actually had that thought like in the past. I was like, why does this kid sound like he just has a weird voice? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and look,
it's weird.
I'm going to say there have been lots of female voice actors who have done male characters and done a great job. So it's not just the fact that it is a woman. It's just the fact that the voice sounds like a little girl's voice. It doesn't sound like a boy's voice. Like Carl's voice, Sheen's voice, Nick's voice, all the other guys in this movie have voices of little boys. And I'm not saying like they have to sound super masculine because they're kids, but I just feel like Jimmy's voice it just does not, it sounds like a little girl's voice.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I was like, this is bad, honestly. I agree with that. I mean, I was watching the movie, and I think that thought crossed my mind. I was like, I'm just not really going to engage that thought. I just kind of went with it. But I know what you're saying, and I didn't love it. I guess maybe going on with that, like his voice and I think the whole just aversion to girls was played up a little bit too much. I was like, I don't remember like just hating girls with every fiber of my body when I was that age. Like, I wasn't like eager to, be in a relationship with a girl or anything at that point or anything like that. but it wasn't like, I'd look at a girl and be like, oh, that's disgusting,
Yeah.
So
it's like a caricature of what kids are like. And I think a more accurate depiction is Arthur, where the kids, like the boys and the girls, like sometimes they're maybe not the best of friends of at all times, but they are friends. They get along, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably my main gripe with the movie is that, because I remember as a kid that kind of perpetuating or furthering that perception of girls being like this mysterious thing. And obviously there are a lot of differences in growing up and maturity and the experience of being a girl, in America, I guess. That's being questioned now, but, I don't think it needed to be that, hyped or just highlighted as much in the movie. I thought they could have gotten along a little better, not just at the end. That's my main gripe, because I think it just promotes sort of kids not like girls being water and oil, just not mixing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think that's true just because you're really young or before puberty or whatever, but that's not a huge deal. Overall, it didn't ruin it for me or anything. So.
And it does seem like, I think that it's mainly Cindy who doesn't get along with the guys, whereas Libby seems to get along fine with them. And then there's the scene where they go into the candy bar and the girls pie the guys in the face, and it looks like they're just having fun, and like it's like a water gun fight or a water balloon fight or something like that was pretty common at that age, whereas it does seem like it's mainly just with Cindy.
Yeah, it's mainly with Cindy. Yeah, I agree with that. And Jimmy too, I think. When they're like looking at each other in space, and Jimmy like goes and makes it all weird. It's just like, be nice. Yeah. Like, you don't have to hate her just because. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't love that, but other than that, not a huge deal or anything.
Yeah, because like all the other characters seem to get along fine, and it's just mainly those two. Yeah,
exactly. So, but you do get a couple of glimpses of that sort of changing. Like they're like right on the verge of reaching that phase where they want to interact more. Like when he's talking about dances and stuff the next year, and when they're in prison and she comes up to him and gives him a pep talk and stuff. You can kind of see glimpses of that changing, but they're few and far between.
All right. Well, there is one last thing I want to talk about. That is the future for the franchise. Okay, so we're going to mention there was a show. We already talked about it. It was The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. It was a pretty good show. I'm going to watch a couple episodes now after watching this like you did. But in addition to that, I found out that they were planning a sequel to go into theaters after how big a success this was. It just never got out of production purgatory. They never got anywhere with that. Had you heard of that before?
It's possible. I don't think so though. And that's really too bad that they didn't though. I thought a sequel would have been warranted, especially after the show ran for 4 years. I thought they might have. But maybe that's why they didn't do it. Maybe the show kind of started dying out after the 4th year, and they're like, "Oh, it's probably not worth it anymore." But I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, here's what's interesting, Barry. According to in 2016, someone from the show or from Nick, they started talking about the idea of rebooting the franchise. I don't know if that's in the form of a movie or a new show, but I'm here for it. I want to see it.
I think they should reboot it. I think they could. There's some stuff they could improve upon. I think they could make the characters and the animation and stuff look incredible, especially with how technology has advanced. They could actually fix Jimmy's voice so it doesn't sound like a tiny girl. And I think people would watch it. I really do. Like a lot of the, the reboots, it seems like studios have been doing that a lot recently. Like,
and Disney's doing it a lot.
Yeah, Disney for sure. Like Toy Story is a good example of that.
Yeah.
And obviously this wasn't
or Disney Channel with Girl Meets World, Raven's Home.
Yeah, stuff like that. And people will watch it just because, it's a reboot of a classic. And I think Jimmy Neutron is though it's not like at that SpongeBob legendary, level.
Yeah.
I think it's worth, maybe giving it another shot, but it's kind of 50-50, I guess. Maybe 60-40, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. And I would totally be here for it if they do it. So
yeah, neither the movie or show has been immortalized, such as SpongeBob. The kids nowadays, my neighbor's kids, I drive them to Awana sometimes or to soccer practice or whatever, and they love SpongeBob. And SpongeBob's a big hit now. And one of the kids said that they've watched Jimmy Neutron at school, like when they have an indoor recess, they've put it on a couple times.
Yeah.
So they've been introduced to the show. I don't think a lot of kids though have seen this movie, which is a bummer. I think it'd be fun to revisit it, and the precedent was also set by the Hey Arnold reboot. Well, not really a reboot, but they made that movie 2 years ago after 15 years of nothing, so we'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
People like nostalgia. And there are people who have kids now who maybe not, okay, if they watch Jimmy Neutron, they probably don't have kids old enough to watch the show now, but with Hey Arnold, like that was a little older. There were people who have kids now and they can show that to their kids.
Yeah. And it's a good thing to show them because I think it inspires them to think about, science and technology and stuff. I mean, it definitely did that for me. So, and it's a fun way to do it, I guess, too.
Yeah, it is educational in some ways too. Not quite the Magic School Bus, but
no,
you do learn some
like
stuff.
That, yeah, so
more enjoyable to watch the Magic School Bus, I would say.
I agree. Yeah, Magic School Bus is a little cringy.
It was fine, but and I know there are people who listen to this that like it. It wasn't like a show that I was gonna watch when I was out of school.
Yeah.
Like it'd be fun if they put that on in class and we didn't have to do anything. It'd be fun, but like Jimmy Neutron is a show that I'd watch on Friday nights on the Friday Night Nicktoons or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Man, Friday Night Nicktoons, is that still a thing?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Haven't been watching Nickelodeon as much these days.
What? I have not. Well, they do have. I no longer have Xfinity, but when I had Xfinity, I had the Teen Nick channel.
Yeah,
which was excellent. They put a lot of old stuff on there, like Drake and Josh and all of that. Old episodes of that. Keenan and Kel. Lots of good stuff on there. Amanda Show. That's always fun to revisit.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yep. The nostalgia factor takes me back to Saturday mornings, like, during fourth grade, sitting there on my couch, avoiding homework and other responsibilities and just watching Nicktoons.
How about this soundtrack? I like the soundtrack. It brought back a lot of memories hearing Kids in America.
Yeah. I mean, just the beginning when they introduce, Jimmy Neutron is, when he's flying through his bubble to school.
Yeah.
And
done by Bowling for Soup, by the way.
Okay. And then they used it for the theme song too for the show.
It may have been a different recording of the theme song for the show.
Oh,
I could be wrong. But yeah.
Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure, but yeah, so there's that, like Kids in America. That's kind of all I remember from it, though. So
I'm looking at the soundtrack right now. I'm going to give you some names on this soundtrack, and then we're going to sign off. Okay. But this is gonna bring you back. All right. Bowling for Soup, Aaron Carter, NSYNC, Lil Romeo, Nick Cannon, Britney Spears.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Backstreet Boys, No Secrets, and then there were a couple older songs with the Ramones and the Go-Go's with We Got the Beat. But
that sounds like the early 2000s to me. It's really amazing. Like, I mean, because at one point that, I don't know. Like, it's weird. Like, those were the hot people at the time, hot singers or whatever. And there's none of them, like Britney Spears is like still around, but she, and NSYNC is broken up. Justin Timberlake is still big. Aaron Carter, who knows where he is.
He did 2 years ago, he had a concert at a bar in Valparaiso. I kid you not.
Yeah, okay. So he's very much faded.
I think he may have done a show at Carthage too, and I was like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, I only remember what was it? I Want Candy or whatever.
Yeah. The Lizzie McGuire episode.
Terrible song. And then I just remember Lizzie McGuire, or not Lizzie McGuire, Hillary Duff and maybe it was Lindsay Lohan. I don't remember, fighting over him or something like that. That's just about all I know about Aaron Carter.
Yeah,
all I remember.
That's about the same. All right, well, Barry, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. Let me ask you real quick, do you have anything that you would like to plug or promote on this podcast? Any social media handles, anything of that nature?
Man, I wish I had something. I don't.
Okay.
But, next time you want to review a Nickelodeon movie, I'll have something for you.
All right. Well, I'd love to do that. That'd be really fun.
Cool.
Did a great job, and I look forward to having you on here again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a quick hour and a half.
I know.
That went by fast.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Anytime. Sup, y'all, and welcome to Press on Sports. I'm Jack Vita. Today is June 5th, and it is a special bonus episode of the podcast. That's right. It's going to be a very fun one today. Had a good time talking some sports earlier this week on Monday with Bear Coatman, not to be confused with my guest today, Barry Dunn. And so if you're interested in that, you can go back and listen. We talked about the finals. We talked about some Major League Baseball. Last week, it was less than a week ago, I had Parker Gatewood on. We previewed the finals. We talked a lot about the Raptors and what they're going to need to have to do in order to take down Golden State. And prior to that one, I had Rachel Gerhardt on, and we talked about a lot of reality TV, The Bachelorette, Amazing Race, Survivor, The Challenge, and a little bit of Saturday Night Live. So if any of that piques your interest, go back, listen to that. This is my fourth podcast in about 11 days, so chugging along here, having a good time. Hope everyone's enjoying the summer. So today is going to be a really fun episode. We will not be talking sports today, which is why I mentioned all the other stuff you can go back and listen to if you were looking for some sports talk. So today, I'm going to be talking about a classic movie from my childhood, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, not the series. We're talking about the film today from 2001, and I have a great guest joining me right now, Barry Dunn, Barry, this was your favorite movie as a kid?